What's up, everybody? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Music Business Podcasts for our first Meet the Hosts special. Really wanted to do this because we're super grateful that you guys are actually tuning in here. Want to make sure you guys have enough context on both of your hosts. So in today's episode, this is me, Sam Hysell. I'm going to be interviewing my co-host, Jordan Williams. Jordan's the manager and operations consultant at EQT, which is a super talented management company. They have an incredible roster with some of my favorite artists, Goldlink, Smino, the list goes on, Masego. So with that said, really excited to be interviewing my co-host. I know that the tables have turned a little bit here, Jordan, but how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's cold in New York, but I'm good.
It's way too cold. Got to get out to LA soon. With that said, man, I'd for starters, let's just lay the foundation. I know you've been working with EQT now for a little bit of time. Almost, 2 years?
September 2015.
Okay, wow.
So it'll be 4 years in September.
Jeez, time flies. So can you tell us a little bit how you got involved with EQT and what EQT does?
Good question. So I got involved with EQT through the co-founder of the company, Dan Friedman. Him and I actually went to the same high school. And when I was coming to New York, the dean of students actually connected us. So I think it was like in 2014, I actually met him. And, right off the bat, I just was like, I got to get more information from this guy and I got to learn from this guy. So at first there was a mentor-mentee relationship. And then after that, he got me a couple internships. One was at Mass Appeal Records, just off his recommendations, actually. Mm-hmm. One was at a PR company called Audible Treats. And then at the end of that, I joined a company that he had recently formed, and that company was EQT.
Great. So what is EQT? How do you guys function? What do you think makes you guys unique as a management company?
Well, I think that the co-founders, Dan and Henny, first of all, did a really good job curating people and people that will work together with their egos aside. I think at a lot of other companies, you get like the strict corporate culture, even if it's a management company, which tends to be a little bit more on the closest to the creative side since it's management. You still have that really good creative energy at EQT, whether that's through helping the artist pick songs for their album or creative problem solving. And I think we all respect each other a lot to get from A to Z and there not be too many disagreements or arguments and being able to tell what's really right for the artist and kind of put ourselves aside. So I think that's what kind of differentiates us from other management companies.
Mm-hmm. And how big is the team now total?
12.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
And what does the structure look like? Obviously, you got Dan and Henny at the top, and then you have some other managers, admin. How does the kind of corporate structure set up?
So it's sort of like executives and then kind of like everybody else. So I think Dan, Henny, and then the third executive, Claire Bogle, they all don't make us feel like they're executives too much. When I introduced one of my best friends to Henny, I was like, hey, this is Henny, my boss. And he took me aside afterwards and was like, you don't really need to like say I'm your boss like that. Like we work together. Mm-hmm. So that being said, I think the company is really nimble. And I think, I would consider myself sort of a manager and operations consultant. No one has ever told me that though,
mm-hmm.
Because we don't really have titles. That's just sort of how I would identify myself. So in terms of the structure, there's kind of executives and then there are people with specific roles, and I think those roles are becoming more and more prevalent as the years go on. Mm-hmm. But since the company is still, very young, a lot of the people that we hired were in the past year. We're still kind of figuring that out. So there's some people that are a little bit more administrative, like myself, and then a coworker that I have named Jasmine, who's getting a little bit more on the day-to-day side now. There's people who are like, more creative, like, there's somebody on our team named Ramya who's really good at putting together, or streamlining like treatments for music videos
mm-hmm.
and styling and that sort of thing.
Totally.
Same thing with another person on the team named Kaz. And then there, everybody kind of has a different skill set, and then there are people with the ear. There are people on our team that just like, they can spot out good music from a mile away. So it kind of spans between all of that, but we all kind of help each other. Like one of those people I'm talking about with the ear, Jeremy, he just helped me finish some stuff on Photoshop the other day, just to give you an idea of, kind of getting in where you fit in. It's not necessarily, Jeremy's the one with the ear, he should be the only one finding music. Like he can help me on Photoshop stuff too, and he's fine with that, and everybody's fine with that,
For sure.
I'm more administrative, but I'm down to help with, whatever needs to be done to support these artists' careers.
For sure. And then Claire, that's a slightly more recent addition on the executive level, yeah?
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that partnership, how you guys ended up coming together there, and kind of her experience and what she brought to the table?
Well, Claire started a company called Scoremore Shows. And she started it when she was like 19 years old or something like that. So that was like 10 years ago. So she ended up hiring a bunch of people at the company. They really were able to build it out into something special. They actually just put on Travis Scott's Astro World, was the most recent thing that they've done. And I think what she brings is experience and a lot of valuable experience. And I think that's something that's great about all three of the executives is that I can talk to them on the phone and I'm getting advice that people would pay for, but I'm getting it from these people that have, all years and years of experience in the industry. I'm not too sure. I mean, I know Claire has known Dan and Henny for like a really long time. So I think in the beginning they were thinking about starting something together. It ended up working out. And then Claire was kind of looking for maybe a direction to go in, a different one. And then she ended up, Dan and Henny and her ended up putting together some sort of deal where she came to EQT, and I think she still does consulting work for Scoremore.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's valuable. I think I was talking with Henny, and he started as a promoter too, but I think just being able to have, and even you, having worked at a PR company, at a record label, just bringing all these diverse perspectives together under one roof is a really powerful combination, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know for you, you're like super organized, definitely help really spearhead a lot of the organizational stuff and then kind of streamlining operations and whatnot. Yet the music industry is like notoriously inefficient and unorganized. What do you consider to be some of the most impactful organizational skills for different companies in the music industry?
Something that music industry people I don't think already do.
And different management companies.
I think something that I try to do that I think is sort of a niche thing to do for productivity and efficiency is measure my time. I measure my time a lot. Where does my time go? Where is it spent? How can it be spent better? I think people in general don't do that. One, because it sounds anxiety inducing, like, listing out the things that you have to do. But every morning I have a schedule for the things that I'm going to do. And I don't have a schedule just for the calls and the meetings I have. I have a schedule for, when I'm supposed to go to the gym, like that's on my calendar. Yeah. Or, when I'm going to make myself breakfast, even that's on my calendar. So I'm able to really, through that, I know, when it, my schedule, and it changes sometimes. But like right now, it's the first 3 hours of the day, I only do to-do list stuff. And then around 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, after I'm done doing that, everybody on the West Coast is waking up. So I'm getting a bunch of emails. And that's when I switch to emails.
Right.
You know what I mean? But those first 3 hours of the day are really important because if I get a bunch of stuff done then, by the time I start getting distracted by email at 11 and 12, I already sort of feel accomplished.
Totally.
So to answer your question, I think measuring time is a really big thing. I think documenting and implementing streamlined processes is something that's really, really big that I'm a huge, huge fan of, that you see a little bit more in corporate America that I think the music industry can actually benefit from. So, whether that comes to tour marketing, assets you need, or, an album rollout, these things, a lot of them are more repetitive than we think. And if there is a variation in, an album rollout, let's say we have that that process documented and there's a variation in it, at least you have a base to start from, So I think that's a really big thing. And I think those two things together, in addition to finally, having resources readily available, I think is like the third big thing.
Yeah.
So having reference points for people to go back to so there doesn't have to be too many questions, really documenting not just how stuff is done, but best practices for certain things, Yeah. I think those are real game changers and things that I've been trying to implement at the company myself.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So one thing I think that stands out to me that I really like about you guys is your roster. So I think some of the core artists, Goldlink, Smino, Masego, Berhana, JPEG Mafia, it's this really eclectic mix. You got like a soulful, like Masego, almost like Berhana type vibe. Then you have the like alternative, like JPEG Mafia. Then you got the like Goldlink, who I've been fucking with for a while since the Selection days, who's this kind of like future soul, like upbeat. It's awesome stuff. I personally see it as very much kind of the next wave of hip hop. But sonically, where do you really see the kind of direction going in the hip hop and R&B worlds?
Yeah, a couple of people have actually asked me that. I think and this is just a theory I have. When there's a really, not to get too deep into politics, but when there's a really poor president, I think conscious rap comes back. Just because families are disenfranchised, and then the people that are affected by those the most are the ones that come out, fully trying to explain themselves and their situation. I think you kind of see a movement with that right now. You know, JID's album, he's like spitting on that album, you know, and it's extremely popular. I mean, he's like spitting on that. You know what I mean? Not to say that people in different areas of the industry are less important. You know, I like party rap too. I like pop rap. I kind of listen to everything. But I think conscious rap is gonna be more and more important than it used to be.
Right on.
You know, I think it's gonna make a sort of a comeback, like just good technical rappers. You know,
that's awesome. No, I'm excited for that for sure. On the subject of spitting, rumor has it you used to be a rapper yourself.
Yeah, I used to.
Please enlighten us.
Yeah, I used to rap. I rapped for a really long time. I guess I've technically rapped longer than I've been in the music industry, which is like a crazy thing to think about. I started rapping when I was like when I was like 16 years old. It started off me writing poetry when I was younger. And then from there, like, of course, being like, yo, these are like pretty much raps. Like you should just try to put it into music. And then from there, I started releasing stuff. Like a lot of it's like super corny at this point. I had some super corny names along the way. But one thing that it taught me is how to like work and how to work on your own time. So, you know, getting in the studio, you know, it was work. Doing the work afterwards, you know, doing my own press, doing my own pitching, you know, all that stuff. You had to be a self-starter in order to figure out. And I kind of had to teach myself that sort of stuff. That being said, you know, I had a lot of mentors along the way. You know, I have family that were in the music industry. Yeah. So I'm the only one that actually works in the music business now. There's a lot of people. I have two brothers that still, I would say, are musicians.
That's awesome.
And I kind of transitioned to the music business. But, you know, all of us, it all started from just trying to figure it out, you know? So, I used to rap, but I credit that more with really like developing an entrepreneurial spirit, you know, as opposed to like trying to figure out how to rap well.
For sure.
It's funny you said I was organized. I think my flows were like too organized. Like they were very boring. You know what I mean? Like I tried to rap in every bar. Like I tried to make every word rhyme perfectly. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of a reflection of how my brain works.
Right.
It wasn't for creative. It was for more of a business side, you know?
For sure. So the transition from kind of putting the rap dreams aside to pursue the business side of the industry. I know you went to NYU and studied music business. When did you decide that you really wanted to kind of stop focusing on the actual like music creation side and focus more when it came to kind of really trying to create a legacy in the industry as a businessman?
I think at some point, like in college, I realized that I didn't like creating music as much as I thought I did. It was like, this music is a means to an end. I'm creating it because I want to do the work after it. So I would go in the studio for like hours and it would come out weak every time. It wouldn't seem like I was in it. And that's because I didn't want to be in it. I would make the song. I'd be super hyped to send it to the mixing engineer and it'd be done. And then I'd be the most happy when I was pitching the songs myself, creating the networking opportunities myself.
Right.
That's what I really thrived off of. So I think my sophomore year, junior year, I was like, this just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I told someone I'd rather have like my own office than my own studio.
Yeah, for sure.
Then I just decided to stop.
When it came, I mean, obviously studying music business at NYU, prestigious university, how valuable do you think that collegiate education actually was? I know in the kind of the more entrepreneurial world, oftentimes people tout like, it's funny because in the startup world, people try and claim that dropping out of college to some extent is like them bragging, like I didn't need college. But at the same time, obviously there's tons of skills that you are able to learn. What was your experience studying music business at NYU? Did you find it to be very valuable, impactful? If so, what were some of the biggest takeaways?
It's funny. Somebody just asked me this earlier today, so I have it fresh on my mind. I think one of the biggest takeaways, there were three. One of them is that I learned time management. Having projects due, having finals, and balancing all that with internships and jobs.
Yeah.
It taught me time management. Strictly, it taught me by necessity, really.
For sure.
Totally. I remember thinking when I graduated, like, I can't wait to have more time when I graduate because I had so many things on my plate during college. It was like, I have no time for anything, And now that I had time to kind of downgrade to a job, things have obviously picked up since then, and I'm very busy again, but I've been here before,
right?
Because I did it in college. So I'm handling it a lot better than I did the first time. I think that college teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to do things. I mean, I thought school was all right, but it taught me how to do things that I didn't really want to do. So it kind of taught me how to just grind, like really hustle to get an A, even if I didn't want to do it, you know? So now, there are classes I hated, and I had to do it for 3.5 months. And I hated them. I didn't like walking into them, and I had to spend hours a week on those classes because those are the hardest classes to pass.
Yeah.
And there's stuff in my career right now, just mundane tasks, that are everybody's career that I just don't want to do. But like I said, I've done that before.
Yeah.
I've had to sit in a class for 90 minutes every 2 days and just hate it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it taught me that. And then third, I think NYU gave me a good foundation of the music industry in a way that was low stakes. So obviously I had to get a good grade in my music business classes. I majored in music business, but I wasn't messing up someone's company if I didn't do well on a test.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So it gave me a lot of room to fail.
Right. That's awesome. So I want to talk and explore a little bit. Obviously, you interface and work with lots of different artists and communicate with them often. For starters, what's the most frustrating part about working with artists sometimes?
I mean, I think, artist management more than a lot of other careers in the music industry is you're working with people. So, and you're working, directly with the CEO and the founder of their company, which is the artist and their music, right? So I think, when you're not on the right page with an artist, I would consider that frustrating, but I wouldn't consider it negative. I would consider that just growing pains with you and the artist. And honestly, sometimes when I'm in those positions and I'm like, oh, well, now at least we get to talk about this.
Right.
So if there's something that I think should be different about the creative, or if there's something that I think should be different about the rollout or, the marketing plan, and I bring it to the artist and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's frustrating, but it gives me the opportunity to be like, why? And learn more about them and be able to work on their behalf a little more.
Right.
So I think in any field where you're working with people, like you're gonna bump heads.
Totally.
And that can obviously be frustrating, but it's all just creating and developing and nurturing that relationship that you have with the artist.
I remember yesterday you were telling me about the good cop, bad cop strategy. Can you share that approach?
Yeah, so I actually didn't even know this was a thing until fairly recently, but I am, like I said, I'm pretty organized. And I want to get things from point A to point B in a fairly reasonable manner. And then we have some other people on the team that are also, just because of proximity, they're closer to the artist. They can be kind of cool with them. And I think, occasionally I can be the kind of person like the parental figure that's like, eat your vegetables at the table. Like, let's get this done. At the same time, though, you have the other manager who's kind of doing the opposite. That's kind of like, let's just chill for a little bit. Tell me some of your ideas. And that's just as valuable. So, that happens a good amount, I feel like, especially with me, because I'm like, yo, when you going to get this? When you going to get this? Yo, let's do this. Let's do this. And a lot of times there needs to be a dichotomy. There needs to be somebody else to be like, oh, yeah, Jordan, he's doing his job. He's good at this job, but he can trip sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Roles between people and how they interact with artists, they're not necessarily, it's not like we go into it like, oh, Jordan's going to be the bad cop and I'm going to be the good cop. That's just how it ends up sometimes. And then you just kind of have to roll with it,
Totally. Looking at the landscape of other management companies, who stands out to you?
Like other management companies? I think Visionary Music Group is a big one.
Why?
I think because I kind of saw their ascent from years ago when they picked up Logic to where they are now. I think they have a really great artist. I think their team is really efficient, and I think they're good at thinking differently. So I think Team Visionary is a good one.
Plug the upcoming episode of the Music Business Podcast with Harrison Remler.
That's why I wanted to interview him, man. That's why I wanted to interview him. So for that reason exactly. Other management companies, I'm trying to think here. It's funny because management companies kind of work in the dark, right?
Totally.
So like EQT, even if you go to our website, we don't have anything on the website. It's just a logo and then contact and privacy policy, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
Yeah, I have to think about that a little bit.
No, that's helpful. So what do you think makes a good manager versus a great manager?
So the answer to this question is, it can change.
For sure.
I think right now in my career, the thing that I've realized this past year is that it's not about you. You know what I mean? And you can't take things so personally. If an artist is upset or If an idea that you've brought forward to the table is shot down, it's not about you. It's about finding out the best option forward for that artist. So I think great managers can see the difference between I want to do this because I'm into it and I want to do this because it's good for the artist in their career. I think when you're able to draw that line, I think is a really big moment in a manager's career of when they can really start making real progress.
Right.
So you said just great managers, I guess?
Yeah, just good versus great.
Yeah.
What are some of the common mistakes you see managers make, or like going to the other end of the good versus great spectrum towards the like mediocre bad?
I think managers can micromanage. Like it's very, very easy to micromanage. You have so many decisions to make every day as a manager. It's super easy for somebody to send you something and it look good and you'd be like, oh no, well maybe we should change this one thing. Oh, you know what? Actually, we should change this one thing. So like I said, it takes really stepping back and being like, okay, well, what's good for the artist? You know, instead of just, you have a lot of power as a manager. So instead of thinking, oh, I have a lot of power, I should change something in this proposal just because I can.
Right.
Versus I should change something in this proposal because it's good for the artist. Or if this is great, I should just leave it alone.
Right.
I should just accept the proposal. You know what I mean? So I think managers, I think the biggest mistakes that I've seen personally with managers is just micromanaging for no reason. And that takes time. I used to do it too. People used to send me stuff and I used to be like, oh, well, it looks weird if I say this is okay.
Right.
I should say something is wrong with it. We should change it. You know what I mean? And it just, it takes time to really realize what some things you need to step into and change and some things you don't.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Advice for artists to find managers. How do they do it? I mean, obviously it's, sometimes it can just be your friend that's your manager. Other times you start working with a renowned management company like EQT. If I'm an artist that's already been making music, starting to bubble, still relatively early on in my career, how do you approach finding a great manager?
Management usually happens like really early in the artist's career. It's like so early that I don't even think people should look for managers. I think they should just do their own thing because you want somebody to manage you who really likes your music, who would like run through walls for you. You know what I mean? So if I come to you and I'm like, Sam, can you manage me? And you're like, yeah, like you already don't have the attitude to manage me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like someone should be approaching you saying like, yo, your music is really good. Do you have a manager? And that usually happens a lot of the times, most of the times before a label even finds you.
Right.
Managers, they're the first people to bet on the artist. So I think, my advice to them is just to do your own thing. Try to get your name out there as much as possible. Keep learning, keep getting an education in the music industry and what you should do, and do that DIY management for a while. And then when you finally break through a barrier, there'll be somebody waiting for you.
Yeah,
somebody will reach out. And a lot of the times it's people with no experience, and that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. But somebody will reach out when the time is right.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Okay. Platinum. What Crewe by Goldlink is double platinum, triple gold?
It's triple platinum now.
Triple platinum.
As of today. As of today, yeah.
Massive congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Can you talk us through that journey of what it was like being involved in a record that's now triple platinum? Obviously, you were there from the jump. Through that entire journey.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I didn't even know Crewe existed until like it was just sitting on our hard drive, like as a company, and I like listened to it, and I was like, "Yo, this is crazy." I was like, when does this come out? Like, when is it? I was just freaking out. So, it just gave me a really good feeling. I know that sounds really corny, but I was listening to Crewe for months before it ever came out because I just liked the song. So
talk us through the journey of it getting released through going platinum. I think it's obviously you can't like replicate the model for every song. It's just a great song too, but like really curious your perspective. What you felt to be some of the biggest like inflection points or the biggest standout elements of that story that helped propelling that song forward?
Yo, so the thing is, like, Crewe kind of went on its own. Like, we released it in December, and it went platinum, like, almost a year later. So it was like, straight up grassroots. People were just finding the song and sharing the song. You know what I mean? So I think when I personally thought the track would be, like, a really big track, did I know it was going to get nominated for a Grammy? No. Did I think it was going to go triple platinum? Like, maybe. And I think that's just a real testament to the power that just a quality song can bring, So the song comes out in December. We put the video out in March. it's moving, it's doing all right. The people who hear it like it, even my family members were hitting me like, yo, this is a super tight video, song's super tight. And then the summer comes all of a sudden, and it's like the song was just given new life. It's like it must have been a summer song, because I feel like during the summer is when, I heard it on the radio a ton. Right. And then all of a sudden it gained this momentum. And then the next thing you know, October, November comes, or whenever they say, when Grammys or nominations, or whenever they say it, it was like, yo, like, Goldlink's nominated for a Grammy. I think we all just felt like, this was the next step for him.
Right.
And I'm not even sure if we all were expecting it to happen right then, but he's got some good music coming out. And I think that Grammy nomination and the success after it has really made him a more confident rapper. And I think everybody will hear that in his new music. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah. That's
incredible. When it comes to promotion strategy for new music and records and sustaining records, chilling in a catalog, how much of that is you guys really spearheading strategy, or how much of that is you just kind of relying on the label to spearhead strategy?
Well, we work with a lot of artists that don't have a label. So I think it's sort of different in those scenarios. I think management is always going to be the helm of any artist's career, and that includes the marketing strategy too. So, whether the label comes up with the ideas or we come up with the ideas, it's still on us to make sure that they're right for the artist and the artist's career and their vision and that the label's vision for the song is an accurate one and something that we kind of agree with. So I guess in terms of marketing for people that aren't on a label, I think a lot of it is us, and a lot of it is a company that we work with called M Theory. They're sort of consultants for us. I think a lot of it is collaboration with M Theory on execution, and then having sort of management come up with the ideas, So, and that can come in the form of like a late night text to someone, just like, yo, I think this would be cool, and then we end up running with it. That's kind of how it works sometimes. Or like it could be in a marketing phone call. You know what I mean? I think it's just about being open to ideas, and then eventually, letting one of them stick,
For sure. Totally. So obviously your core role is in A&R and finding new artists and new music. I know you're definitely a big fan yourself and spend tons of time listening to music. And to the extent that you do come across an awesome artist, I'm sure there's coming from the Short and Child Williams carries some weight. With that said, like how do you approach A&R? How does EQT approach A&R? Like, what are you guys looking for? Is there a process behind it, or it just kind of happens organically?
I don't think you want to get too deep into a process, because you want to be able to keep your ears open. You want to be able to keep listening to music as it comes in. If I say I'm only going to find artists off Spotify playlists, I could miss something on an Apple Music playlist. Or if I say I'm only going to listen to music from these certain people, then I'm going to miss the music that the average consumer finds and sends to me, So I think, at least from my perspective, it seems like the A&R teams that have a really good ear, they just constantly listen to new music.
Right.
And then they back up that discovery with data and analytics. And if they match, cool. And, sometimes they don't. And it's like, okay, well, this is still a great artist, and they still end up popping. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is just following your gut. A lot of it is great positioning. Where does this artist fit in the current landscape of music? And I think that's a question a lot of people forget. Like, I can like a song and then think that it's not going to pop, or I can like an artist and think it's not going to pop because the positioning is too weak or the narrative isn't strong enough. Right. It's sort of thinking about all of that and coming together and deciding on, if we should take next steps with that artist. And a lot of it is, listening to music before it comes out. Like one of the first questions I ask when I'm really entertaining an artist, or I feel like when A&Rs do in general, is, what other music do you have that isn't already out? Like where's your sound going to? Not just what is it right now.
Totally.
So it's kind of a lot of everything. But I think if you were to try to make it a process too much, you'd be detracting from your own skill set of having that good ear.
Totally. Before we jump into the hot takes, what are your ambitions, man? I know you got a big vision, you're a true hustler. It's been a pleasure and honor getting to collaborate on this project with you. And I think it seems like things are going really well with you at EQT and kind of your evolution there. What's the goal? What are you working towards?
All right. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I think like everybody, they just want to keep progressing and growing. So in terms of that, like, and in terms of my personal goals, my goals at EQT kind of shift around a lot. So my personal goals, I think a position of leadership at some point would be really cool. I don't really have like a super strict timeline on it, but yeah, I think a position of leadership at some point would be really cool. I also think that diving into another realm other than music at some point would be really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm programming right now. I'm trying to figure out how to become like a semi-decent programmer. So maybe at some point figuring out how technology can really interact with music in a different and fun and unique way, and not necessarily something that's consumer facing, but maybe business to business facing, or just for EQT, just kind of figuring out, how can we use this to have an edge. So in terms of ambitions, I think it's just keeping progressing and moving forward, and hopefully, someday I can be, my ideal music businessman, but like I said, I try not to put too much pressure into a plan, because I still want to keep an open mind. Like, totally. If you had to ask me a couple years ago what I was doing in New York, even, I would have said I wanted to be a rapper. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just about keeping that open mind and just moving forward with what feels right,
Totally. Cool, man. So now the hot takes.
I'm ready.
Dun, dun, dun. Finding new talent is the most important part in artist management. True or false?
I think, yeah. I think finding talent is really important. I don't think it's the only important thing, though.
Right.
I think a lot of people confuse finding new talent with that being like the only thing, and totally forgetting about that you have to work really hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm obviously very biased with this, but I think the game changers in the future for artist management is just really figuring out operational efficiency. And I think that's really important and overlooked in a lot of music companies. I think that's important at an artist management company. And I also think that's overlooked a lot is synergy between employees, not just between employees and artists, but, if me and you work together, Sam, it's like, well, how is our relationship doing? Mm-hmm. And just keeping that open dialogue, open communication, and no judgment atmosphere out in the open for everybody. So yeah, the talent is obviously very important. Like, if we were signing bad acts, the company would go nowhere no matter what I tried to do operationally. But that engine to kind of keep the train moving, I think, is what people constantly forget about. So true, but sort of false too, because I don't want people to feel like, when I say true, they don't listen to the rest. They're like, okay, right. He said true, and then walk away from the podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You don't know nothing.
Yeah. There's a lot. Cool. There's a lot more that goes into it also.
Word. Last hot take. Obviously, you live in New York City. Hot take. Los Angeles is the mecca of the music industry, and if you want to thrive in the music industry, you need to be living in LA.
I don't agree with that. I think I kind of see New York as the brains of the operation. And I see LA as kind of like the arms and legs, like where the artists are, where the music is, that sort of thing. I think a lot of places are headquartered here. I think you can just move quicker here. Like I said, every day I wake up and I get to work at 9 a.m. Like, I got 3 hours before everybody is really up at their computers. And I can take advantage of that time in the day that LA just doesn't have. That being said, they do hit me 3 hours later, but it's just different. You know what I mean? If I can just wake up and get the biggest stuff done out of the day, I think that's really important. I think the grind of New York is really good for music industry professionals and artists in the beginning, because they can learn how to like really hustle out here. Right. You know what I mean?
Totally.
That sun out there, I love it, but it can be intoxicating. Yeah. So being out here and really having to hustle and grind, I think is something that, if you live here and then you move to LA, I think that's when you crush it the most. Like, you live here for a while and then you decide to go out LA. Everybody's like, "Oh man, this is crazy! Like, you are so good at what you do." I feel like I've heard that story so many times.
Right.
That being said, I do think you have to have people there.
Right.
But I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think you can come here and have just as successful as a career, you know?
Right on. Well, this has been super fun, man. I enjoy interviewing you a lot. One last question. What excites you about the Music Business Podcast? I know we've been putting a lot of time into this. What are you hoping to really help other people with? What are you hoping personally?
What excites me about it the most is our guests. I'm just really excited to talk to our guests. That's kind of the whole point of this whole thing, you know? Like if I wasn't talking to our guests on the podcast, I'd be inviting them to lunch, be inviting them to dinner, whatever I could to pick their brain.
For sure.
So the fact that we can just share that information with people is really awesome. Yeah. I think that's to really put it on a platform. I think that's super cool.
Fantastic. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on as a guest to our show. So with that said, thanks for listening, guys. As always, feel free to tune back in. Super grateful that you're here. Super excited about this podcast. Have tons of super awesome episodes coming out soon. Thank you.